Winners win. I'm a winner. We're going to win.
Gators Breakdown. Because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_GB, coming at you with a loaded episode of Gators Breakdown right here because the first just full press conference since Jon Sumrall's been hired as Gators head coach. Had his introductory press conference and then had the little mini session at the basketball game a couple of weeks ago. But now this is just the full-fledged. It's National Signing Day that completely everybody forgot about because it's, as Jon Sumrall said, it's kind of just your roster day, not National Signing Day anymore. So of course, Florida signing class for 2026 has been set in stone for quite some time now, had a transfer portal. So just a good chance to talk to Jon Sumrall about where the roster is, his thoughts on it, and kind of dives into some neat topics there. As far as that goes, we also hear from Buster Faulkner and Brad White today, both offensive and defensive coordinator. We're going to save Brad White for another. Like I said, it's already a loaded episode. This is going to be Jon Sumrall, Summer Buster Faulkner as well. A lot of offense was talked today. We'll get into that. So just a busy day. Just contents will carry us for a little while with your head coach and both coordinators talking in about just a little over an hour combined for everybody. So, Jon Sumrall went about 40 minutes. So, Florida allows us to use 3 minutes from it. So I'll use the 3 minutes that I'm going through the official channels. That's what we do. So I'll share about 3 minutes of Jon Sumrall, 3 minutes of Buster Faulkner, and then some other topics that they go into. But just a lot to get into for what they said. It was the first time we heard from Buster Faulkner and Brad White in this setting. So certainly a lot of questions being asked. We got to hear from him from Florida Victorious last week with Nick DeLatorre talking to Buster Faulkner and Brad White. So we got a little bit. Buster Faulkner was on Gator Tales with Sean Kelly. So we had a lot. We talked about some of this already last week with that, but even more to dive into now, of course. But then even more Jon Sumrall. Big announcement, of course. Put it out on social media. But tomorrow, on Thursday, we're recording this on Wednesday, but on Thursday, Jon Sumrall hopping on Gators Breakdown. Big time right here. Exclusive interview right here with head coach Jon Sumrall. Looking forward to that. We'll get him on about Thursday morning. We'll pre-record it, put it out later today, probably sometime in the evening. But absolutely excited to have the headman on himself right here. Jon Sumrall on Gators Breakdown. Put it out sometime Thursday, so just kind of watch out for that. Watch the social channels, all that. You'll get the alert, of course. Go ahead and subscribe right here. If you subscribe, make sure you get those notifications for new episodes. But the headman himself right here, Jon Sumrall. Thursday on Gators Breakdown. Looking forward to it. So lots to get into, of course, right here. So certainly glad for his time and putting himself out there for Gator Nation. So he's on my good friend High Top and Shelton in a couple of weeks as well. So Jon Sumrall getting it done. We get it. And look, I listening to the press conferences, and some of you probably saw me in the chat off to the side, certainly on social media sharing it. Jon Sumrall's been doing about all he can do to win over the fan base. And I'm not saying going out of his way and not necessarily being himself. I think he's being himself and winning over the fan base. So I think we'll get into a little bit of that conversation as well on tomorrow with him. But chipping away at the fan base a bit, because we all know, he wasn't the first choice. It was a lower tier coach, but since that early December, winning some people over. We've liked what we've seen so far in the last couple of months. So lots to get into there when all this stuff happening right here. So just content galore right now. Spring practice starting in about a month. So get ready, guys. Let's buckle up. Let's get ready to go here. So Mr. Gray says, yeah, complete 180 from the last administration. Yeah, man. It certainly feels different. The way you approach your feels and your approach, there's something to be said. I think Nick DeLatorre talked about it the other day about being even keel, no matter if it's good or bad. There's something to be said for that. But at least with Sumrall, you're getting the hype. You're getting maybe aggression is not the right word, but aggressive in a good way there for Jon Sumrall. But we all saw him when Nugent commits and he, chest bumps him in the basketball hallways right there and about breaks the kid's ribs. I mean, and that's who he is. I mean, and no apologies for that whatsoever. So it is a breath of fresh air. It is different. Hopefully different means better. Hopefully different means better. Scott says, congrats, Dave, for getting the coach on. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Lucas checking in. Go Gators. What's up, Lucas? Night of Fake checking back in, too. Go Gators. Let's see. D5. I can't. I'm sure that's abbreviation for something. But anyway, Dave, always numero uno in the fresh pressed interviews. I like the press conferences. I mean, look, they are what they are. We all know their words. It's going to be about the win-loss record. It's going to be about the football games. That's all we got right now. It gives us some talking points. That's what we're doing right here, right? That's what we're doing. Scott says either John's tenure will be like Urban or Muschamp. That's the vibe I feel. Well, I like that. Hopefully we hope it's like Herbs. With Muschamp, you see the vibe, you see the hypeness, you see the controlled chaos. Is maybe a good way to put it. I'll put that in there. King James, Cairo, Georgia, in the house. Hey, going up to Georgia. Growth Mind says such a night and day difference from previous press conferences. Absolutely. So. Yep. We'll get into all that. Kyle Williams says, "Yep, Billy was a dead fish." It is different. It certainly feels different. I think I got the vibe I got from a lot more people watching the press conference today. Just more the fan base, Gator Nation was more engaged with it. It wasn't the malaise, I guess, is a good way to put it. So, all right, we'll get into it. We got lots to get into, guys. Lots to get into. I hope I can fit it all in. We got more assistant coaches talking on Friday. They talked about Rusty Witt, the strength and conditioning coordinator for the Gators, did Jon Sumrall today. He talks on Friday, so probably save some of that conversation when he talks and kind of mirror what Jon Sumrall said today, but a lot more talking there on Friday. So like I said, there's a lot. You guys, Gator Nation, you got it good the next few days. We got it good the next few days. But here we go. One more time for our friends at MyBookie. It's the last football game of the year. Last time you can bet football, college, NFL. It's the last time you can bet it all right here and do it so with our friends at MyBookie. Time for the big game, of course, in San Francisco. MyBookie's got you covered for all the betting action. Everyone's going to be watching, of course. Everybody's going to have their take. We'll go bet the spread at MyBookie. And right now, it's Seattle, favored by 5. Go bet the over-under at 45.5. And then all the prop bets you can handle. Super Bowl's the one game, of course, with the prop bets. They matter just as much as the score. MyBookie Super Bowl prop board is deep. So go bet it all right there at MyBookie. One account, one wallet. Bet football spreads and then prop bets and then spend some time hitting the casino games. No switching apps. You don't have to jump platforms right there. All in one place. And if you're new to MyBookie, one more time, use our promo code Gators and your first bet up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play. If it doesn't hit, you get it right back with the bet back bonus. So sign up right there at mybookie.ag. Use promo code Gators and go claim your bet back bonus. Don't just watch the game. Make it pay with MyBookie. All right, let's get this thing started. Let's get it started right here. Hear from head coach Jon Sumrall. And, I'm going to get into the roster part of this first. Get into the roster part. And, of course, the question being phrased of, the high school guys you signed, the transfer portal you signed, where's the biggest need roster-wise that you wanted to hit in the portal that maybe you feel like you got there? See what Jon Sumrall had to say.
Yeah, there was some that I think we answered more resoundingly than others. I still don't. I'm not fully comfortable fully assessing our roster, right? Because I've been with them for a month-ish. I still am not. I would always take more depth on the line of scrimmages. the offensive and defensive line, I would like to have maybe gotten a couple more always. So that would be one place I would start with, like, probably could have added another piece or two on the D-line in particular for numbers standpoint. I did feel like, when you go to the portal, you're trying to answer maybe where you have a hole or a gap or a void. And I felt like for us, sometimes, man, it may be a frontline starter you're looking for at a certain spot. Sometimes it's a guy to compete for a job. And so I can't fully say I know exactly where we are in regards to that. Like, I think we know, but it's such a calculated risk when you're doing that. And then, too, the other component that people don't realize is, like, there's a lot of guys in the portal I'd love to add, but we do have some funds that are not, like, endless. Like, there's a cap for us, at least at Florida. I don't know what everybody else's numbers look like, but we couldn't just say, hey, I like that player, let's go pay him X amount of dollars. You have to make the math work. And so there's some players we didn't go pursue because when you found out what it was going to cost, it's like, well, we're going to be over, like, and not just a little over, but like, and so you can't just keep adding all top end of the roster players, maybe from a value standpoint on the financial side.
All right, there we go. So a little budget reality check. I mean, a candid admission right there about the financial limitations at Florida. That was notable. That was notable. And then, of course, it goes into, John's one of us. One of us. I mean, how many times have we talked about the trenches, needing help, offensive line, defensive line. We'll get into that too. But the biggest thing, and I hate living in this world, but we kind of just have to. But one of the biggest takeaways here was about the financial limitation here. Now, look, I mean, you guys have heard me say plenty of time. Florida's not broke. Florida's got a good NIL. And he goes on to say at some point, and here's like, every coach wants more. I mean, there's only a few programs that probably don't really have a complaint where their NIL is. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. Florida hasn't reached its ceiling. There's still a way to go. Florida's NIL is still really good. Florida's NIL still really good. And I think it's gotten better since Jon Sumrall's been hired. I think there was some trepidation because you weren't getting a big name at head coach. Look, he's not sitting beside Hugh Hathcock at a basketball game for just no reason. I mean, everybody could put two and two together there. But, Florida have a cap, sure. Still put together a pretty good transfer portal class. Prevented Florida, as he said, from getting certain portal targets, but still a good class. And does it hold Florida back some? Yes. I mean, everybody would love to be Texas Tech and go out there and spin like crazy. Of course. LSU and what they did in the transfer portal. Yeah, I mean, there's some programs that are going to be able to do that. I still think Florida's NIL is in a good spot. It could be in a better spot. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying it's perfect or anything like that. But kind of a breath of fresh air for Jon Sumrall just to put it out there is a call to action. I mean, you go back to his opening press conference, and this is, hey, we need everybody rowing in the same boat. Everybody rowing in the same. Let's get this thing going together. Now, of course, every coach is going to want that. And Jon Sumrall, credit to him for putting it out there early on. But he's right. If we want this thing going out there, we all need to be rowing in the same direction. I think it's any mistake that he put this out there is a call to action. Hey, come on, let's get this thing going. If you want this player, you want that player, you want your transfer portal class to be up here, it's going to take the funds. So, all right, let's throw it out there. Let's put it out there. Let's have the admission right now that while we're in a good spot, we could be better. We could be better. It's like the equivalent of a 10-2, 9-3 season. Yeah, you're happy over, for the most part, depending where your program is, of course. But for the most part, 10-2, 9-3 is good. You'll probably be disappointed. Probably lost a game maybe you shouldn't have. But get room for growth, right? Room for growth. And that's where Florida's NIL is. Full credit to the retainment and getting some big names in the portal. But can't say we're nitpicking here when the head man's out there saying, I would have liked to have a couple more defensive linemen. A couple of targets out there I would have loved to go out there and get. We couldn't afford them. That's where we're at right now. Texas couldn't afford everybody. Don't get me wrong. They ended up putting, after failing to get Jaden Ball and Jaden Woods, they went out there and got some big names. Cam Coleman, of course. They didn't get everybody they wanted. Could they afford everybody they wanted? No. I remember at some point in this whole transfer portal, their fan base was moaning and groaning about, well, we're not going to spend the money. We can't spend the money. Can they spend more in Florida? Yeah, sure. But even they want more. It's not a unique to Florida situation. But hey, I thought it was pretty candid there by Jon Sumrall to go out there and just put it out there. Hey, this is where we are. We want to be better. We can use some help. I liked it. I like the truth. I like the truth. Nathaniel, I didn't take it this way. Now you got it. If we get our ass beat, don't blame me. Florida is cheap. That's not how I got it. That's not what I put out there with that. I mean, not expecting Florida to win a title in year one. And with what Indiana and Kurt Signetti just did, that reasoning from any coach is just not going to fly. Well, you didn't give me this much money. You didn't give me that much money. My roster wasn't here or there. Neither was Indiana's. Believe me, coaches hate what Kurt Signetti just did at Indiana because that excuse that you just laid out doesn't fly anymore. Now, that doesn't mean I expect Jon Sumrall to go out there and put together a Signetti at Indiana year one or win the national championship in year two. I mean, it gives me a possibility that it could be done. I'd be foolish to expect it. Now, I expect it at some point, and that goes for any coach. They're not just unique to Jon Sumrall. And I've said that for every coach. We should be in position to be competing for an SEC championship and a national championship by year 3, year 4. But I have no problem with him saying out there, let's go out there and help me go out there and get some better players. I don't think it was going to the statement was putting blame somewhere else. And I didn't take it that way. All right. Defensive line depth. I mean, what he goes into remains a concern. I mean, of course, you got the portal cycle, and that's where a lot of us turned our attention to. He would have liked another piece or two on the defensive line from a numbers standpoint. I mean, I think, and I'll pull it up. You start looking at the names, and we went over a little bit. Brendan Bett, Jamari Lyons right there in the middle, Jeremiah McLeod, Joseph Mbachu. I think it's a good core. DK Kalu comes into the transfer portal. You know, those are guys who are mostly your interior defensive line. Then you got Jaden Woods, Cam James, LJ McCray, Emmanuel Obadejo. I mean, I think if I had to, and we'll get into this more with Brad White when we start talking about defense and how he talks about 3-4, 4-man front, all that kind of stuff there. But I think if you had to put, two edges, two defensive linemen together on the field right now, Jaden Woods and Emmanuel Obadejo on the edges, Brendan Bett, Jamari Lyons on the inside. I know they're really excited about the potential of McLeod and Mbachu as young players. But we know they hosted some defensive linemen. Bring in Kendall Gorville coming off of an injury on the inside. Yeah, I mean, I get the I completely agree with at least wanting more bodies there. Jamari Lyons hopefully continues to rehab and recover from that injury a couple years ago. And thankfully he stayed healthy this past year. Brendan Bett, I know we all go to the spitting incident against USF, but I thought all in all was a good player there for Florida. Your hope is McLeod and Mbachu just take that second-year jump and give you a really good 4-man rotation. Hopefully all just stay healthy. I mean, that's the biggest thing here. Florida starts getting injuries here, and that's where this number viewpoint from Sumrall really comes into play. But I think a lot of us do look at this as a vulnerability for this defense. Stay healthy, and I think you're okay. I do like Brad White talking about today in the defense that he hopes to bring to Florida and what these guys can do up front. It's more an attacking style. Go get in the backfield instead of so much reaction. Go force the objective. Jaden Woods, Cam James, LJ McCray, Emmanuel Obadejo. I think it gives you a really good core of edge groups. I think there's a lot of potential. The potential of 4 guys there are probably higher than the potential of Bet, Lyons, McLeod, and Mbachu. But man, health is going to be so key here for that group. So I get Jon Sumrall talking, hey, I wish I would have got a couple more bodies in that group. And then Sumrall, and I'm probably going to try and ask him about this. I get 20 minutes with him when I get to talk to him on Thursday. And I was going to ask him about, some thoughts on the roster. And look, he admitted today, still learning the roster. I mean, about 2 months on the job, was still coaching Tulane, still coaching that, recruiting for that school, recruiting for this school. Still a lot. So he says, a full month now, a little over a month on the Florida job, still admits that not fully comfortable assessing the roster. Not really a surprise to me. Got some time before spring camp start. That's where your evaluation of your current roster really kicks in. They'll be covered by then. But still some uncertainty a little bit there. Certainly want to ask him what he does like about the roster. But eager to ask him about that. Eager to ask him, but no surprise. No surprise there. But like I said, going back to just one of us, I mean, when we sit here and talk about the roster, and this could go for probably most teams out there of where your biggest questions probably still are, and a lot of us could be offensive line, defensive line. I mean, there's only a few teams that are just kind of a factory for offensive lines where you just kind of feel good. I mean, you're Miami's now, you're Notre Dame. There's 2 schools to me that just kind of pop out the most, at least in recent years. Everybody's going to say, man, I want better and more guys in the trenches. You don't never feel like you have enough. And like he stated that. So of course, we see it in recruiting right now, especially for offense. It's been a guide for expectations of, all right, this is where we're targeting. This is the priority. Let's go do it. So I think, given what Sumrall said today and seeing what we've seen on the recruiting trail, yeah, you can tell the priority is in the trenches. All right, so we get a little bit clarity as well about Sumrall, the coach. So this next part lets us know how Sumrall and his approach on, the aspects of coaching and how involved he'll be overall. The question was asked for special teams, but Sumrall expands on the topic.
I've got a background as a special teams coordinator when I was an assistant coach, so that part is still a passion of mine. Jonathan Galante will run our kicking game stuff. I'm involved in all of it. I don't put any play calls in the game, but all the play calls that go in the game, I know exactly what we're doing. So I'm not like, yeah, call whatever you want. Like, we ain't doing that. But I also very rarely, occasionally I interject and go, hey, I want to see this. Special teams, probably a decent amount of defense here and there. Offensively, more conceptually, what I'd really do with the offense is I probably look at what the defense is doing and give them information I think that can be helpful about how we can attack them. But in the kicking game, I'm involved. I mean, I'm going to be in every special teams meeting. At practice, I'm probably more engaged to the practice component of special teams than I am anything in regards to my focus, because I think when your head coach and your whole staff, you'll see a staff coach special teams too. If you're not the offensive line, defensive line coach, or one of the coordinators on special teams, it'll be all hands on deck at practice. Like, everybody will be involved in the drill, because I think that shows our team, hey, this is important. And if all the coaches are involved, it feels important. That's why I go in the weight room a lot, because when I'm in the weight room a lot, I think our players go, man, it must be important to be in the weight room and be strong. If the head coach is involved in the kicking game, I think it diminishes what those guys think the kicking game can do for your individual opportunities in this game, but also your team success. And so I'm very involved.
A lot of this stems from the success Urban Meyer had on special teams and just how big of a difference it made. And look, there's been a lot of communication between Jon Sumrall and Urban Meyer. They've talked about it a good bit, both of them. And so Sumrall mentioned he's talked to Urban a couple of times. And I'm sure Urban has just let him know how important overall it is and how big of a difference it is. But Sumrall already knows it. It's his background and his passion. He's been a coordinator, special teams coordinator before in his assistant coaching days, and it remains a personal passion of his, of course. So there's a lot of hands-on leadership here and letting them know that, hey, this is an emphasis. It needs to be an emphasis. I'm going to be involved in it. And I think, there's a lot of culture through visibility. A lot of people are going to be involved here. I'm going to be involved here. The coordinators are going to be involved here. I fully expect a lot of the starters, a lot of your big-time players, a lot of the speed you have on this roster are going to be a part of special teams. So I don't think it's going to be lost on anybody how important this is going to be, and especially coming off the heels of what we saw for so many years under Billy Napier. They got better, but the first couple of years, special teams just seemed like an afterthought and a joke. Too many guys on the field, not being able to run off the Arkansas game where you're trying to kick a late field goal and it's helter-skelter and Florida ends up taking the penalty. It just was a joke. For so long. It had to end up, there was no special teams mat, and then there was a special teams mat. Now, look, a lot of teams do a special teams mat. So it wasn't to say, but my thing is, why did it take 2 seasons to get it on the sideline? It's just a simple thing as that. Now, Joe Houston comes in, and Florida's return game gets better, certainly gets better. But I think the players they start having involved, those special teams is a bit better as well. They finally got, your field goal kicking specialists, of course, were pretty good under Napier, but you just had these laps and the moments that we all remember. And it just seemed like the first couple of years, it was an afterthought. And it cost Florida some games. Cost Florida a lot of games. So I like the all hands on deck approach. You got your coordinators, you got your position coaches, the entire staff's going to know. And with that, it's going to trickle down to the players. Special teams aren't an afterthought. They're going to be a difference. So, of course, with Urban Meyer. And I think the question, it was asked by Edgar, I think, Meyer blocking 17 kicks across his national championship runs. It can go a long way. And Jon Sumrall knows that. So I'm actually interested to see, the very involved part. How does it translate? Is it going to be in just one area where you're going to see block kicks? Is it going to be the return yardage? You're going to be taking advantage of field position battles and all that. And eager to see, what. Because for Meyer, now don't get me wrong, you had Brandon James. And that, to me, was I'm going to give Meyer a lot of credit there, but that was really, to me, player specific. Because Brandon James was just special back there. But it was, to me, where the scheming part of it, knowing when to call it, knowing when to go, just block punts. There's Jeff Dimps and Chris Rainey and all the speed coming off the edge. That's where you're coaching that up. And you're coaching the punt return as well, but that takes a guy who with the vision and somebody like Brandon James to make guys miss. To me, that's more player led than coach led. But the coach led part of blocking the punts, blocking the field goals, that's a lot of coaching. So Sumrall admitting that he'd been more engaged with special teams in practice than offense or defense. It's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting there. Seems like to me, when you hire coordinators as experienced and as good as Buster Faulkner and Brad White, it's going to allow him to do this. There's got to be a lot of trust with the experience that those coordinators have. I'm going to trust Buster. He go back to with his opening press conference and talking about Buster Faulkner, and we'll get into this in just a second. But hiring Buster Faulkner is like, hey, there's going to be offensive coordinators out there that want to work for a defensive-minded head coach. Because if you got an offensive coordinator that works for an offensive-minded head coach, well, where does the credit go? It mostly goes to that offensive coach, that offensive head coach. So if you want to make a name clearly for yourself, if you're an offensive coordinator, go pair it with a defensive head coach. So, all right, Jon Sumrall, you heard him. He'll be involved in the offense, but mostly that's going to be Buster Faulkner. And on defense, I expect a little more involvement because he comes from the defensive side himself. Probably going to ask him about that. How are him and Brad White going to work together? But with that and Brad White's experience and him trusting him, because there's a familiarity, of course, going back to Kentucky, it's going to allow Jon Sumrall to focus more on special teams. So eager to see how all that goes. All right, so let's get into a little bit more here. And we just talked about it. So some more highlights from the press conference. Jon Sumrall and hiring Buster Faulkner. Of course, there's a prior relationship there. Sumrall and Faulkner coached together, or not coached against each other in the Sun Belt. Faulkner was an offensive coordinator at Arkansas State, while Sumrall was an assistant at Troy. Gets the head coaching job at Troy, and they've stayed in touch ever since. Vacationing, the same beach house, July 4th, started becoming pretty good friends. Sumrall admitted he actually considered hiring Faulkner when he first took the Troy job before ultimately hiring Coach Craddock. Notably, their first conversations about working together happened before Sumrall well before he became Florida's head coach. But it did seem like, reading some of the tea leaves here, that when Sumrall got the big job, whether it was going to be Florida, whether it was going to be Auburn, maybe even Kentucky, maybe Ole Miss, Buster Faulkner was going to be his offensive coordinator. And of course, we'll get into more of this word, adaptability, but that was one of the huge pulls here for Jon Sumrall, and something that when we all heard that it was a rumor, and then it happens while we were so excited for Buster Faulkner to become the offensive coordinator, is because he can adapt the talent. Haynes King, running quarterback, power zone read with the quarterback. Yep, we can do that with Haynes King. Previous stops, not a rigid scheme. Offensive evolution, a lot of versatility. Spread, air raid with the Mike Leach style systems. Pro style, learning with Todd Monken in Georgia. Very good balance with those Georgia teams and Stetson Bennett. And involved again with Haynes King, with a running quarterback who could also throw, of course. We've seen it. It led to a lot of big plays when they had the running style quarterback. A lot of the misdirection close to the line of scrimmage. Your defenses had to worry about that a good bit. Get thrown over the top. And then, from Sumrall's defensive background, what he looks for in offensive coordinators is let's make the scheme fit the personnel. He values the player-driven approach, building around the quarterback, the offensive line strength, and the skill position talent. Well, that's what we're going to be doing here at Florida. And then there's a lot of continuity here. It goes on to say, Jon Sumrall does, that having Coach Craddock on staff helps Faulkner because Craddock has worked with Sumrall before. So if Faulkner has some questions when Sumrall is available, he can check with Craddock about how the head coach thinks. So, well, there we go. Keeping with the Georgia Tech theme here, some of the other highlights here are Jon Sumrall being asked about Aaron Philo and bringing him in as quarterback, and how much of that was the trust that Sumrall has in Buster and Buster's confidence in Aaron Philo. Some of the key points here, Sumrall's confidence in bringing in Philo, it's heavily based on Faulkner's endorsement. I mean, since Faulkner coached Philo daily at Georgia Tech, watched him develop for years, that familiarity eliminated uncertainty. Now, there is an open competition. Sumrall did go on to say that. Despite these credentials, despite the experience there with Buster Faulkner, Sumrall emphasized there is no starting quarterback yet. And goes back to, reference his Tulane experience with Darian Mensah, and he was third string until 2 weeks before the season opener, and he's the starter. And then, of course, being high on Tramel Jones, of course, Sumrall views the quarterback room as strength, with an endorsement of Tramel Jones, calling him a player with a, quote, really high ceiling, and expressing genuine excitement about his potential. And then one more time, we've heard this approach with the workout starting, where there's no logos, there's all that kind of stuff. You got to earn the logo. Well, the earn it mentality, the earn it approach, it's a clear message in the press conference today too. Sumrall with a clear message, quote, everybody is going to get what they earn. Positions, of course, now will be won through performance, not reputation. So it doesn't matter. And Philo's got the 2 years of experience. It is an open battle, not just with Tramel Jones, Aiden Warner, Will Griffin as well. 4-man battle here. That's why Sumrall went on to say about the quarterback competition, where Darian Mensah was the third quarterback on the depth chart, but eventually winning the job. Doesn't matter. It's going to be open competition. Now, I still expect it to be Philo when it's all said and done. I think the experience will be too much to overcome for the rest. But there we go. But certainly, this is an angle to it all with the transfer portal and Aaron Philo that, now it's not the same as we've seen head coach and quarterback combo or OC quarterback combo. We've seen it play out, last year, Oklahoma, and them bringing the OC and the quarterback, but Mateer having more experience. Well, this is what we're seeing here with Faulkner and Philo. Of course, it's become a new model to, if you can, bring an offensive coordinator and the quarterback together. Bringing guys you've already developed rather than gambling on the unknown talent. But the system familiarity here, I do believe it's an open competition. I do believe that narrative holds up. I don't believe it's a motivation tactic. I don't think it was said to just keep Tramel Jones here. I do think it's going to be an open competition. I just think there's a built-in advantage for Aaron Philo right now. And then some more talk about, and some more of the staff here. And him being asked, so Sumrall being asked about the two wide receiver coaches. You got Marcus Davis, Trent McKnight. Marcus Davis on the outside, Trent McKnight being the passing game coordinator and the inside wide receiver coach. And Sumrall basically saying he's falling in love with the two wide receiver approach. It's worked for him in the past. And then this is kind of where we first, because Sumrall spoke first before Buster Faulkner. And we'll get into that thought in just a second here. But this is where Gator Nation started smiling a little bit today, because it was the first time, and Gator Nation rejoicing a little bit, that Sumrall comes out and says, we'll go see, you go see us run some 4 receiver sets. We'll go be in some 11 personnel, some 10 personnel. And that was music to Gator fans' ears, because we just haven't seen it in quite some time. We want to see this offense open up. And once he came out and said, hey, 4 wide receiver sets, yeah, we're going to do some of that. Okay. Yeah. Gator Nation took notice with that. Hallelujah. So that was pretty funny to see the reaction to that out there today with the press conference. But, personnel-driven approach. And I think what you have at wide receiver here, we've kind of thought this. Credit for the last staff and the way they recruited the wide receiver spot now. Trey Wilson, Andy G, Aiden Mizell, that's when we were first excited. And we were wondering if this offense would open up. Well, none of those guys are even on the roster anymore. But it continued. Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown III, now bringing in Eric Singleton, bringing in some more talent from the transfer portal. Still, I think the chance to open it up a bit more. Use that speed to your advantage. So I think that's just what we're going to see now. I think that's what we're going to see. And Sumrall went on to say with the modern structure, college football now mirrors the NFL. There's no limit on who can coach anymore. So having the wide receiver coaches broken up like this, big time advantage for him. Everyone who should be on the field coaching is coaching. So, all right, let's go on to Buster Faulkner. Let's hear from him for a little bit. Move on. Let's hear from him in just a bit. We'll get back to some more of what Sumrall had to say. So let's move it on. Offensive coordinator Buster Faulkner talk in just a bit. And it starts off with why Faulkner followed Sumrall to Florida. And then he gets into the detail of the Florida offense that he wants to see.
Jon and I have known each other now probably going on 4 or 5 years. I think you can see his passion, his energy. He's a proven winner, and that's something that I was attracted to, right? Obviously, Florida's a great place and got a great tradition, and, I look forward to helping, restore what's gone on here in the past, and I really believe that we can do it. But just his leadership, and you guys have had a chance to be around him, but when he's in front of the team, it's different, right? And that's, something that I crave, right? I want to be around a guy that brings it every day, right? I like the fact that he's defensive minded. I think you look across college football over the last 10 years, 12 years, and there's two pretty good defensive-minded head coaches that have been in this league and won a lot of football games. And at the end of the day, I'm all about winning and how you win. So that was some of the reasons I wanted to work for him. And then across the profession, he's known as one of the good guys. So it's been awesome so far. I look forward to it, and we've talked about this for a few years now.
Is that something that you think you'll need to take into spring camp to continue evaluating, or are you able to judge that based on what you've seen on their tape in the past? How does it kind of all come together?
Yeah, great question. A little bit of both, right? Like I said, over the last couple of weeks, we've been able to lay a foundation, like what we think we're going to be, install our terminology, right? Some of the base run concepts, some of the base pass concepts, right? And then have the ability to go in one direction or the other, whether it's more counter schemes or whether it's more zone schemes or whether it's more vertical passing game or whether it's more horizontal passing game, right? The foundation's in, okay, or will be in, and then we will go from there. And so, that started now, and that'll continue to go through spring practice. It'll go into the summer, and hopefully about 2 weeks out before the first game, we'll have a really good idea of who we are and what we're going to be, and then, go from there. I'm all about winning, and what's it take to win, right? So we're going to adapt to our guys. We're going to throw a lot at them here early, as much as we can, see where that kind of falls. And I've got a pretty good idea of the foundation that we're going to do and what we're going to be. But we're going to do what they're really good at and try to do it a bunch of different ways.
And John said that you guys are going to have times where you play 4 wide receivers. That's music to the ears of a lot of Florida fans. How much do you want to be able to push the field vertically with those guys?
I want to be able to push the field vertically, horizontally, over the middle, every which way we can, right? Get them involved in the run game, whatever it takes. The thing about receivers is usually they're the fastest guys on the team. So, and you can kind of look at what we've done in the past is how do we get them the ball in space so they can go make plays? And that's looked different at a bunch of different stops. For me, over the last couple of years, we played around the strengths of, the quarterback that we had, but that didn't mean the receivers weren't heavily involved in the game plan, right? You can look at, when Eric was there, he had 22 carries for us for almost 200 yards. Was an extremely explosive player. So we're always going to get those guys involved because they're the guys that you can either throw short and run long or maybe pitch it to them and get an explosive play. So they're going to be a part of what we do.
Part of what we do, man. I expect VB3 and Eric Singleton Jr. to be used a lot. I expect him to be involved in the run game. And pair that with Jaden Ball as a traditional running back and how he'll be used creatively as well. I mean, I know we want to see this, 4 wide and go down the field, but you heard what Faulkner had to say. I mean, I don't care if it's vertical. I don't care if it's horizontal. We're going to get guys the ball in space. We're going to let them work. In every interview I heard, this is the third time we've heard from him in the last week or so. And you can just tell he is a big time speed guy. And that's just what we have here at Florida. And that's what you can recruit here at Florida. Now, I don't know how long Faulkner's going to be here. I hope he's everything I think he can be. And then if that's the case, he's probably only here for 2 years before he gets a head coaching job. But it's what he has on the roster now, because he knows what he has in Singleton. And being able to use him, how to use his speed. We all know the speed and the versatility VB3 can bring to the table. And then Dallas Wilson out there out wide too, and the potential that we've seen as the big body downfield threat, physical presence at wide receiver. I think there's a lot there creatively Buster Faulkner is going to be able to rely on. But as far as the run game, and as he said, we'll get wide receivers using the run game as well. For that main group of receivers, VB3 and Eric Singleton, I expect to see the ball in their hands a good bit. Maybe lined up at running back. Maybe lined up in the backfield with Jaden Ball as a quote-unquote another running back. I'm eager to see it. I'm eager to see how he gets creative with this Florida offense. And I think, you have the defensive head coach, offensive, with the OC dynamic. We talked about that earlier there, but Faulkner's comment about defensive-minded head coach winning the SEC's telling. I mean, Saban, of course, and Kirby Smart, of course, and, seeing just the success there. Now, it's waned a little bit. But still your most recent I mean, Georgia still won the SEC 2 years in the last 2 years. He can't get past Alabama and Kalen DeBoer or Nick Saban, but for the most part, Georgia's still finding a way to win it. Now, it's still, Kirby Smart's still proving that I still think to be the best coach in the SEC, maybe still the best coach in the nation. I mean, got to throw some love towards Cignetti's way as well. But a lot of the winning Kirby's done. I mean, yeah, it's been recently in the SEC, still a defensive head coach. But I do like the pairing right now of somebody like Jon Sumrall. I mean, Buster Faulkner was very high on my offensive coordinator list. I didn't know of course, the relationship that they had every summer in vacationing together. I mean, the only connection that I knew of was, they coached against each other. I didn't know there was a connection. I'm glad there was some kind of friendship to fall back on, because Buster Faulkner, I think, is going to be what we think he is. So, I mean, and with this, the biggest thing for us Gator fans, because of what we just went through, I don't think there's going to be this heavy influence from Jon Sumrall in controlling the offense. And going back some time, I don't think this is going to be a Will Muschamp scenario. I don't think this is going to be failing to identify initially your offensive coordinator hire and then chasing your tail throughout the whole time because you just couldn't get it right. I think there's going to be full trust. I don't think he's going to be overbearing here. Why hire an offensive coordinator like Buster Faulkner and then try to control him? I don't think it's going to be hands-on, and I don't think it's going to be all that hands-on. I think he's going to trust him to do his job. I think you're to see it. I think there's going to be trust there. I think there's going to be a lot of trust there. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of micromanaging. Maybe more on the defensive side. If it does happen, that's where I think it will. But I think there's a lot of working together and familiarity with Brad White that, I think that's going to be pretty meshing. I don't know how successful it's going to be. I'm just saying I don't think there's going to be a lot of micromanaging. And then with Buster Faulkner, the main theme that was kind of coming away from this would be kind of the adaptation and identity of this offense. Now, we've heard it before. We hear it a lot out there, but we don't see it. Of coaches saying, we'll adapt to the personnel. The last staff said that. The last coaching staff said that. Didn't really see it all that much. Now, Faulkner has a track record of doing it. Has a track record of showing different styles of offense. Adapting to his quarterback. I think this flexibility is a strength. But in the end, I see a pretty balanced offense. Because you have a young, inexperienced quarterback, don't really know what to expect there, a new offensive line. But you got great skill players at both running back and wide receiver. So I think it'll lean into the balance a pretty good bit. I know we all want the 4 wide receivers and the big-time passing plays. Yes, I want that too. But the running game has a place too. And we all wanted Jaden Ball back. So, yeah, he should be getting the ball a good bit. So adaptability to me in year one will and should be balanced. I'd love for an offense to be able to do what I've preached for so long. Dictate. Don't be dictated. I mean, I know we live in the past because our most famous coach, that's what he did. We all love Steve Spurrier for his quips, his, knifing at rivals and opponents. But a lot of that stemmed from what he was just able to do on the field. And not too many times where he didn't dictate what was happening on the field. With that offense and that fun and gun. And that was passing and running. Like that run game gets overlooked a lot. We all love the high flying and Warfel to Ike and Kwesi, Riedel, Chris Doering, Travis McGriff. We all love that. But man, I think we also loved Eric Rhett and Fred Taylor and Ernest Graham. I mean, in the end, the fun and gun was a pretty balanced offense. Now, when you were passing, it was down the field a lot. It wasn't a lot of screens, and it wasn't a lot of 2-yard dumps and 3-yard dumps and trying to make the receiver. I mean, there was some of that, of course. But this was, we're throwing the ball 30 yards, 40 yards down the field. Go dictate. Have an offense that dictates. Yeah, Scott says Emmitt Smith too. Yeah, I was just thinking the Spurrier Scott for that, just trying to get related to the fun and gun, and so many just put the passing aspect of that. But it was a very strong run game too. Very strong run game too. Buster Faulkner on Aaron Philo. We'll go back to that just for a second. And from coaching him and observing him, we get a little bit more. And of course, what made him believe that he was the guy that was capable of having success in the SEC and being a priority target to bring him here to Florida. He said, yeah, obviously I had a chance to be around Aaron for 2 years every day at practice, and really even before that, kind of recruiting him since he was a 10th grader. He was a guy that I always thought, had a chance to be a great college player. You go back to when he had this opportunity to play a lot at Tech. One of them was in the Miami game where he split time with Haynes, and Haynes couldn't throw the ball. So we kind of just put Aaron in to throw it, and he was one of the reasons we won that game. Third downs, red zone. He came in high pressure situations, and he followed up the next week, and he played against NC State. It was the same thing. He split time and then took us on a game-winning drive as a true freshman. So when you're judging a quarterback, it's a lot of things that you look for. Obviously, when we're recruiting them, but when you get a chance to be around them, they're good on third downs. They're good in 2-minute situations. That's what you got to be able to do to play the game at an elite level. So that's the few game experiences that he does have. So when we got this opportunity, he reached out, wanting to make the move. There's nothing guaranteed, right? That's one thing these guys didn't make the trip with me. They know there's nothing guaranteed. I'm all about competition. We're going to play the best player. So nothing was guaranteed to him, and he was still willing to make the move. So, of course, you got a long-standing relationship there. And going back to this, it's not a given. Somebody who's proven a little bit. There's a little bit of game film to throw his way, more so than Tramel Jones. But still an open competition. No guarantees. So I think, Philo, some proven game experience. I do like the critical moments. Those are what you can't teach. And against a Miami team 2 seasons ago. A lot of game against NC State, too. So it's not just, he did start against Gardner-Webb this past year, but the level of competition he faced as a true freshman, more so than his sophomore season. So I didn't, how much does that weigh on Faulkner? I think if it's close, those are the things Buster Faulkner will fall back on, along with the mental toughness, the accuracy, the decision making. But I think those game situations against bigger time opponents, if it's a close battle between the two, that's probably what leans it in Philo's direction. But either way, for both quarterbacks, sample size concern. Philo's resume built on essentially those 2 games, significant action in those 2 games. Is that enough evidence to project SEC success? I think a lot of us, and me, myself included, and I'm not going to call it a trap, but probably for lack of a better way to explain it, fall into the trap that we're going to trust Buster Faulkner here. Because that's where I'm at. I'm going to trust him because, yeah, we can go and look at those games that were mentioned, but we've seen quarterbacks time and time again get some game reps when they're not the guy and it looks good, but when they're the guy, it doesn't translate. We saw that with Emory Jones a bit here at Florida. That's the first one. Anthony Richardson comes to mind. Emory Jones, Anthony Richardson. Obviously a different staff. Not trying to, but I'm just saying, in general, we see it all around the country. Auburn, I think, had that for years where, was it Jeremy Johnson, I think, who got some good playing time, younger in his career. Those are the ones that pop out to my mind. But when they get that opportunity, it doesn't click. So there's a lot of projection here. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say there's questions. But I have a big trust in Buster Faulkner to pick the right quarterback and have a quarterback ready. Have the intangibles to have a quarterback ready. All right, there we go. little bit more for the offense. A little bit more for the offense from Buster Faulkner and then Jon Sumrall. But let's get back to Jon Sumrall. And we're going to continue here on offense because he did go into Eric Singleton. Some players that he did go into specifics on. Eric Singleton was one of them. He was asked about him. Some of the key talking points there, the pre-existing relationships, and we discussed this when Singleton came here. That probably went a long way. Singleton's first college offer, didn't know this, came from Sumrall at Troy. So there's one connection. Already had a connection to Jon Sumrall. He then played, of course, for Trent McKnight and Buster Faulkner at Georgia Tech and Marcus Davis at Auburn. So there's 3 coaches on this one staff who have a connection to Eric Singleton Jr. So it was going to be tough to see him go anywhere else if he didn't go to the NFL draft. I mean, multiple staff members already with a strong connection. Use it to your advantage and you got him. Now, of course, there was a big priority in retaining VB3 and Dallas Wilson, but the staff was looking at adding one more explosive perimeter threat with, quote, top-end juice. That's the way it was explained there. Top-end juice, I like that. But somebody you can move around. Somebody you can move around inside, outside to help Dallas Wilson, to help VB3. But it's a unique situation because, of course, Singleton initially declared for the NFL draft and then was invited to the Senior Bowl. And this is another place where connections helped out. Drew Fabian, a Senior Bowl organizer and a staff friend, tipped Jon Sumrall and staff off that Singleton might return to college. So what did they do? They positioned themselves quickly and got into the sweepstakes. So familiarity working out here big time. Coaches, knowing somebody as a Senior Bowl organizer. I question what kind of connections Jon Sumrall might have when he was hired. And that was going to go for anybody who was coming from the Sun Belt, AAC, wherever they were coming from. If Florida was going to go that route, what connections did they have that would help pay off? Well, okay. Just in this single recruit transfer portal target in Eric Singleton, we saw the familiarity and staff payoff, and we saw some Senior Bowl organizer Drew Fabian payoff and say, hey, I know you got a lot of guys who know this kid. He played well under Buster Faulkner. You got a relationship with him. He may not be going into the draft. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Go at him. So it worked out. It worked out. So, of course, Singleton entered the portal. The decision came down to Florida. A couple other schools, Sumrall, believes just like eliminating the unknowns through familiarity made the decision easier. So, of course, what he brings, Sumrall went into it. Olympic level speed, who can, quote, take the top off coverage, extremely difficult to tackle in space. Now, I like this admission here. The staff is working on his change of direction skills to elevate his game even further. So, of course, bottom line here, this was a relationship-driven recruitment that shows the value of having the wide receiver coaches, Davis and McKnight here, with direct ties to the player, Buster Faulkner, Jon Sumrall, get the job done. So adding to, we would have just been excited for VB3 and Dallas Wilson returning. We would have had some questions. You brought in some other transfer portal guys, of course. But as we look here, I'm going to bring it up here on the offensive side as well. We look at this receiver room. VB3, Dallas Wilson, Eric Singleton Jr. But we would have had even more questions about the progression of a TJ Abrams. What are you getting in transfer Micah Mays from Wake Forest? Bailey Stockton comes from Georgia Tech, so we lean back on the familiarity aspect again. Jalen Lloyd, who seems to be an explosive receiver, just not a lot of stats attached to his name. I think we would have been, for the next explosive guy, I probably would have went straight to Davion Gross as a true freshman if Eric Singleton wasn't on campus. I think Bailey Stockton is going to bring a lot of value with the familiarity in the offense. And he was talked up today as well as being kind of just workout warrior and somebody who just loves to compete. But if it wasn't for Singleton Jr., like I was excited for VB3 and Dallas Wilson. That gives Florida two great receivers to start with, sure. But for looking for that next guy in the explosion, I honestly, for me, I probably would have went all the way down to true freshman Davion Gross. And I like what Justin Williams can do as well, the hometown kid from Gainesville, and his versatility. Gross brings that versatility as well. Like Gross and Williams, I think, is the next VB3 and Singleton Jr. I think guys that can take the handoffs, guys that can line up inside, line up outside, be used in versatile pieces. And Marquez Daniel, of course, the big body receiver coming in as a true freshman. But Singleton, I think, gives that safety blanket of you're looking at most formations having 3 receivers to start with. That gives you such a good starting trio and less guesswork when you're looking at your starting trio. Now, to be fair, and it's probably fair to ask, we're probably projecting a little bit with Dallas Wilson as well because of the injuries, but because of the 5-star pedigree and what little sample size we saw, there's a lot. A lot's the wrong word. There's just some confidence there. You're using the 5-star pedigree and you're using what we saw. Hopefully stay healthy, go a long way. Last couple thoughts here. Jon Sumrall decision to retain defensive line coach Gerald Chapman. That was brought up. Learned something new with this one too. Pre-existing relationship here. Sumrall and Chapman worked together previously at Tulane, or for a very short stint, if you want to call it work together. Gave Sumrall direct knowledge of Chapman. Chapman, of course, was there at Tulane before, but that was the year before Sumrall took over. Willie Fritz was there at Tulane. He takes the Houston job. Chapman was going to take that job. So Sumrall took the Tulane job. Chapman had initially left to go with Coach Fritz to Houston. After a few days, Chapman called asking to come back to Tulane. Sumrall took some time to consider it before agreeing. But Florida called. Just 5 days after Chapman returned to Tulane, Florida offered him a defensive line coach position. And you'll love this part if you didn't listen to the press conference yet. Sumrall actively encouraged him to take the Florida job, even offering to jokingly pack his office, calling the Florida job, quote, one you leave for. So little did we know, just a couple of years later, you know what? You wanted to come work for me at Tulane. I'm going to retain you at Florida. You were there. I'm familiar with you. I wanted you on my last staff. But you had to go take a better job. It all works out in the end. So that was a pretty good story there. Retention, it was intentional. Sumrall became Florida's head coach. Chapman was specifically someone he had in mind to retain just from the beginning. Wasn't just convenience, strategic. And I remember being in the opening press conference, seeing Chapman in the room, gave me a pretty good indication. There were a lot of the defensive linemen in there too. Now, it wasn't for sure. DJ Lagway was in that room as well in the opening press conference. Didn't mean he stuck around. But with Chapman being there, as a coach, and he was one of the, I think, few coaches that were in there. I'm trying to remember, Mike Peterson was in there as well. But it stayed in my mind. So the player relationship matters. The defensive line group, they respect Chapman, enjoy being coached by him. That was a huge factor in the decision as well. So I think the NFL will always be an option for Chapman, but for right now, staying in Gainesville, good relationship builder, good football coach, and then we'll see what the next step is for him as a coach. So just think another great example of the relationships right here working out for Sumrall, being able to keep Chapman on the staff. So lastly, to wrap it all up right here, guys, Jon Sumrall went into detail with some other players. Emmanuel Obadejo, somebody I'm very excited for. The physical specimen on defensive line, of course, 6'6" and a quarter. Jon Sumrall said today, 305 pounds, under 10% body fat. I mean, pretty unique story here that Jon Sumrall went into of how they got him. Just very raw, young player here hadn't been playing football for a long time, originally from England. But, I mean, we all saw the photos out there. I mean, just looks what you want a football player to look like. But Jon Sumrall says very physical, passionate about learning, a hard worker, a family-oriented recruitment. He said the parents felt comfortable after a Zoom call with the coaches. Sumrall thinks they were the only staff that Zoomed with his parents, Zoomed with his family back in England. I mean, Obidejo basically committed to Florida while on his Texas A&M visit. So somebody I'm looking forward to seeing, talking about, this defensive front. Somebody I think is going to be very, very, very involved. All right, standout transfers. Eric Singleton, of course, we talked about him. Somebody Sumrall mentioned that has stood out in early workouts. Bailey Stockton one more time. Extreme competitor who hates losing in morning workouts, Jon Sumrall said. Kanye Clark, UCLA defensive back transfer. Pleasant surprise. Described as electric in running drills and movement drills. All 4 offensive linemen have impressed from the transfer portal, said Jon Sumrall. And Cam Dooley, great length and can run. And then the freshman standout, Nare Carr, offensive lineman from IMG, has shown impressive maturity for a freshman, Jon Sumrall says. So Sumrall said, feels good about the addition so far, but notes they haven't put on pads yet. So, of course, that is the ultimate factor. Spring camp in about a month. We'll have spring ball. We'll get the fall camp. We'll get the fall ball. We'll play that 12-game schedule, that 9-game SEC schedule. And that's where we'll make our ultimate determination. But until then, this is all we got to go on. I think the arrow is pointing up, trending up. I think some better feelings out there about where this thing is headed. The more we get to hear from the staff, the more we get to hear from Jon Sumrall. But, I mean, we got some honest assessment out of the head coach. I want some more offensive linemen. I want some more defensive linemen. That's where we need help. We need more money. Not all sunshine and rainbows from the head coach. But right now, most of the time, that's what it's going to be right now. We ain't played a game yet. I don't get the need to try. I mean, we're looking at why this can work out. When a new head coach is hired, that's what we're looking for, why this can work out. I'm not looking at why this can't work out. I mean, because let's just be slapped in the face with the truth. Most head coaches don't work out. Most don't. I mean, we see how, at least for Florida, but Florida's not the only one. I mean, your Kurt Ferentzes of the world are rare. The Kirby Smarts of the world are rare. Most coaches, 3, 4, 5 years, then you're gone. You can take bets. You'll win most of the bets if you say whatever you want to define as a coach not working out. Well, most of the time you're going to win that bet. But ain't no sense in living in that world all the time. Let's see. Let's see why this can work out. And if it doesn't, we'll go along. We'll go along with it. We'll always tell the truth as we see it. It'd be my truth. it will be opinionated. It may not be your truth. It may be the truth as I see it. But I think we're pretty critical. But there's no need to be overly critical right now. We ain't played a game yet. Till we see results, it's just all conjecture right now. We all don't know if it will or won't work out. So let's just enjoy the ride right now. Be glad we have a new head coach. Be glad there is some hope out there. Be glad it is different. All right, everybody. We got more. Brad White talked to the media today as well, so we'll be putting that out sometime soon. But one more time, one more reminder. I don't know when you're listening to this, but by the time some of you listen to it, the episode with Jon Sumrall, right here on Gators Breakdown, will be out there. They'll release it sometime on Thursday, February 5th. Jon Sumrall, right here on Gators Breakdown. All right, everybody, that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_GB. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on another episode of Gators Breakdown.